Next generation meteorologist Joe Shock here from Patreon.com and YouTube, looking at today's tropical update for August 5th, 2021. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than what we normally do. It's the 5th of the month. That means the European seasonal guidance has come out. We're going to be taking a look at that. So not just over the next couple of weeks, but really for the remainder of the season, and yes, into early 2022 for parts of the Southern Hemisphere. You'll see some of that showing up on some of our maps towards the end of today's presentation because it looks like they cover a 6-7 month swath there and their whole tropical seasonal output. So anyway, we'll be seeing that towards the end of the video. But definitely as we begin the first week of August here, things are really becoming interesting, and they're becoming interesting quite fast. So let's begin here with the National Hurricane Center's area of development. Let me just have a sip of water. I even got some water with me today, knowing that we're going to be doing quite a bit of talking in today's presentation. So let me just grab a sip of water, and we'll talk about what we have going on here. And you can see in their 8 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center, we have two areas of interest. This one area that's coming into the islands over the next few days, which might probably, I would say, not develop. I don't see a lot of model guidance support, but you know how things can be. Something looks like it won't develop, and then 3 days later, oh my goodness, it's a tropical depression. But the feature that's coming off Africa, I think, has a little bit more model support. But again, you'll see in the next slide, you know, the MJO coming into these more favorable phases. So as these things continue to work their way across the basin, the Madden-Julian oscillation will continue to ripen itself, and that could certainly be a positive for these two features and others that will be coming along in the coming weeks. So here's the European MJO. You can see we're in phase 8 now, but we're going to be going into phase 1 and 2, amplifying, slowing down, phase 1, 2, and 3, especially phases 2 and 3 as we get towards the middle and latter half of the month of August. And I think what's going to happen in the extended range is that these are going to loop around, come back into an old phase, and then make another pass as we head through the month of September back into these favorable phases 1, 2, 3. Again, likely in some point, but maybe I guess the middle and end of September, we'll probably likely see another rotation into those phases. But you can see through at least the next 10, 15 days or so where we're going to be with the MJO from the European, the JMA, a little bit slower here. Maybe not a little bit slow, but just shorter time. I guess, yeah, let's take it out to the 15th. So a little bit slower with its motion into phases 1 and 2. But again, some pretty good amplitude in here, which would really fire things up. And then here is the GEFS, and it's not as amplified and also has a little bit more uncertainty on where this is going to be going. But I like the European JMA Canadian blend better with its MJO rather than the GEFS. And of course, phases 8 and 1, we begin to lighten things up. But again, phase 2 and 3 are the high impact phases for land impact for tropical cyclones. And then if we do manage to squeak into phase 4 and 5, you can see some hit and miss in the basin. But regarding land impacts, northwest Gulf of Mexico and then up along the East Coast, when we had ECE as pretty much yesterday, actually, year to date, we had ECE as developing phase 3, but impacted in phase 4. And that was a pretty good analog there with the Madden-Julian oscillation with the system running up along the East Coast and inland there. And then, phase 6 and 7 actually favors something near Bermuda and off the northeast New England coast. So that could be interesting if that were to pop up later on in the season. Sea surface temperature anomalies, again, very, very warm. You can see the Atlantic Basin pretty much at or above normal. Very warm in the northwest Atlantic. Eastern Pacific is warmer than normal. And you can see the cooling signal there in the ENSO 3.4 region. 3.4, and here's ENSO 1 and 1.2, warmer than normal. But overall, this is a favorable condition for the Atlantic Basin to produce pretty good tropical cyclone activity. However, though, I am beginning to wonder, is this warmer than normal water in through here just enough? We've seen actually some pretty good tropical cyclone development here in the Eastern Pacific. Is this just enough to throw some wind shear into the basin, for now at least, that it's putting a lid on these things developing? That's something I am looking at going on down the road here. Is this enough just to interfere enough with the Atlantic Basin, especially in the Caribbean, where we have some stronger than normal wind shear with that Colombian heat low? So we have trade winds quite strong, but weaker relative to the average out and through here. So that's going to be something we'll have to keep an eye on, but I don't think it's going to be a huge impact. Again, even if they don't develop in the main development region, once these things start getting north, 25, 30 north, and they start ramping up, that obviously is going to be a problem. So we'll have to see how that evolves over the coming weeks. But something I'm keeping an eye on how this area is going to go about. Looking at the subsurface, which I didn't put on here, subsurface, sea surface temperature, sea surface anomalies, and there's some pretty good cooling below the surface. So maybe as we get towards the peak of the hurricane season, and roughly about a month or so, mid-September, September 9 through 11, 12, that this area might be cooling down somewhat. So we'll see what the trend on that is over the next couple of weeks. But again, the Atlantic Basin overall warmer than normal. Actual temperatures in the ocean, you can see here, 28 degrees Celsius, about 82, 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, plenty of fuel. 26 Celsius, still up around 40 north or so. And then Gulf of Mexico, 29, 30, even some 31 seawater showing up. So we're pretty much between 85 and 87, 88 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. So SST's not a problem. Now the Japanese, here we go. Week 1, this begins on Saturday. The vertical velocity, I like to call it the upward motion pattern because that's what we're looking for. And I guess if we were in the West Pacific, I'd be calling this the downward motion pattern, but true. Nevertheless, you can see the Atlantic Basin here and over Africa, strong and tremendous upward motion, which is favorable. You can see the precipitation starting to beef up here in the main development region again, and I think it's actually doing a quite nice job seeing this wave that NHC's got 40% now, propagating west and northwest over the coming week. And there's that ridge over troubled water. So, I think this thing's got a shot, and you'll see that in the guides. I think this thing's got a legit shot. And the next name would be Fred. And then you can see the enhancement off the East Coast is the feature that's going by now, delivering the heavy rain with the cold front is showing up there quite nicely, but won't be obviously a tropical cyclone, just some heavy rain. So there's week 1. Week 2 looks like this. You can see now this is when things get more interesting because now, as you can see in week 1, you did have some good upward motion over the Eastern Pacific, but week 2 that begins to shut down Eastern Pacific and really concentrates itself over the Atlantic Basin. And you can see much more. I guess you can argue much more. You don't have any yellows really in there. You have at or above average precipitation in the deep tropics and especially along the East Coast. So that may be interesting. Maybe there's some connection coming out of there week 2. And again, there's that classic ridge over troubled water look, as the old timers used to call the old time meteorologists, the Newfoundland wheel, as this is spinning up here clockwise, directing systems underneath towards land. And then you can see week 3 and 4, same kind of thing with enhanced precipitation in the Atlantic Basin and pretty strong upward motion again over the basin. And there's that classic ridging over troubled water as we end August and begin the first week of September. So very interesting look there from the JMA weeklies. We'll see what the European weeklies look like tonight, which I will post later on. And here is the tropical cyclone activity. This is through Monday, Sunday night. You can see there's the wave coming across. Now that's 40%. You can see, looks like here, some 50, 60%, and even some 60 to 70% probability through Sunday night, hour 96. And then through hour 144, the wave that's over on Africa is here. Here comes the next one. This is going through Tuesday night. I did these every 2 or 3 days. Here is Thursday night, hour 192. There's a wave turning up the northwest, and there's subsequent waves coming off of there. And then by next weekend, it's somewhere out here in the central Atlantic with another one following it behind by day 10. And I believe this is a day 12. Yes, it is day 12. 16th, 17th, you can see here, day 11, day 12, hour 288. One of those waves is somewhere in the western part of the Atlantic Basin, and then there seems to be pretty interesting feature coming off and around day 11, day 12. And I believe that was the last one there in that sequence there. Now the seasonals came out today again, so this is the accumulated cyclone energy for the remainder of the hurricane season. You can see here the ACE is pretty much normal here in the Atlantic Basin. The typhoon frequency you can see is a little bit below average 3.4 with the average of 4.6. The tropical storm frequency is 6.8 with the average of 8, so slightly below average there yet again. Now remember, this is for what's to come, not what have already has happened, but still you can see somewhat below average with the Eastern Pacific there. Below average for the hurricane, but above average for tropical storm frequency. So that is going to be interesting, but you can see below average in both of those categories for the Atlantic Basin. Now, the tropical storm standardized density is interesting too. You can see the usual expected values here in this tan shading with some of this blue reduced values. Then, of course, we were talking about, at the beginning of the video, we're going to see some of the southern hemisphere stuff. You can see looks like there could be some fun and games for their tropical cyclone season, which will be our winter here in the northern hemisphere. But anyway, you can see there pretty much a average signal for much of the Atlantic Basin for the remainder of the season. Now, looking at the ensemble spaghetti tracks from the European over the next 10 days, you can kind of see what's going to be going on here, a mixed signal. So something may track along through here. The other way that's out here likely to develop, or down the road, some kind of funky things could be happening, but you can see the MDR is coming to life over the next 10 days. So with all that looked at, my tropical development favorability for the remainder of the month is favorable for the Atlantic Basin. That's it for now, and thank you for watching.